never heard about. Furries are a very vocal community. If something is going wrong in a group, they tend to either step up and say something about it, or whine about how many people are complaining about it in general. So it's no surprise that a lot of the communities I cover in the fandom species videos have a history of quote-unquote drama. To me, drama is when the complaints are minor, or it's just petty interpersonal arguments that get blown out of proportion. There's a lot of that, but a lot of these are more controversies or big issues, genuine problems, and I feel like calling that drama really lessens what it actually is. It makes it seem like less of a big deal than it actually is. But drama has become the new accepted term for this kind of stuff, so drama's in the title. Gets more clicks. I'm usually aware of these controversies when I make the video, because I usually stumble into them while researching the species. Sometimes I'll offhandedly mention them if they're short enough, like I did with Dubmutt leaving the furry fandom and having to refund commissions to people in their manokit fandom. When Dubmutt left the fandom, they cancelled a lot of commissions, refunded, and possibly forgot or didn't make refunds to other people. I don't know how much of this is true, but typically people only post an artist beware as the last result, as I mentioned. I've personally waited 3 years for a commission before and never even thought about doing an artist beware. I did. Other times I won't mention it because it'd be too long, like the Mochi Raptors video, which I'll get into the actual drama of that soon. Other times, I don't mention them because of the actions of the people in the community no longer affect the community, like in the case of Wickerbeasts. The original creator of the Wickerbeasts quit making the species and passed it on to someone else because they no longer had a connection to the species they created. Wickers blew up and grew to a size the Damon Lady couldn't handle anymore, but also people in the community found out that DL was drawing feral NSFW. This was also around the time that famed dog lover, hypnotist Sappho, was ousted for being a little too friendly with animals.
And I want to clear the air and say that, for the record, I am a zoophile.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
Sappho was a VR chat user and content creator that used a Wickerbeast model to VTube with, so there was a lot of pressure at the time on the individuals within the community, and some felt that by having the owner of the fandom being into ferals that it somehow portrayed the community as a safe place for dog loving, being big fans of dogs. I chose to not include these stories because the behavior of both of these people have nothing to do with the Wickerbeast fandoms themselves. These people engage in these behaviors outside of these fandoms, so it's more like they just so happen to be a part of this fandom while also engaging in these activities. DL isn't in charge of the community and has felt disconnected from the community for a long time, so there isn't a connection there. Sappho only uses a model from the species. The model was made by someone unrelated to the Wickerbeast community, so Sappho probably had nothing to do with the Wickerbeast fandom in the first place. So I felt that including it would do more harm to a fandom that had nothing to do with these two bad actors. Now, remember how I said in the beginning of the Mochi video that sometimes I have to go full detective? Well, I'm doing it again. Mochi Raptor controversies are a little more on the money side, and this sort of thing always happens with closed species. But recently, I've been in contact with 3 members of the Mochi community that all told me similar accounts of some stuff that happened around the December area of 2021. That is a little more than just hobby drama. When I explain about someone named Mint, you'll understand why the Mochi drama didn't pop up on my radar until after the release of the video. This community is pretty thorough at covering its cheeks. This first part comes from a Reddit post by the user Beetle Goblin called Mochi Raptors, the tales of an absent leader and expensive dinosaurs on the subreddit r/hobby drama. Reddit has a pretty big history of making stuff like this up for the sake of upvotes, but I've talked to a lot of people in the Mochi community to confirm these. At one point, the Mochi Raptor community used to have 10k members. That's a massive community and probably the biggest I've covered thus far. Even now, it's 4,500 and still the biggest I've covered. This amino they have is like its own little isolated island in the middle of the ocean with its own culture. The amino and species species were made by the same person, Lupipup, who will be the main focus of this drama. In the beginning, mochis were made to be completely open. This was before Lupi made king traits, wings, and overpriced MYOs. This was great because the majority of the community was younger people, and kids aren't usually swimming in dosh. But as time went on, Lupi started to disappear and become increasingly inactive. I get that. A lot of these species blow up and it tends to be overwhelming. It's much like becoming famous overnight, and you either crumble to the pressure or become a vain turd. Stepping back now and then is probably necessary and a good idea to retain your sanity. But when Lupi did come online, it was only to open adoptions or commissions. A lot of people complained about this, but the fan base was rabid at this time and was quick to defend Lupi. This is normal because this was essentially their first offense. If you're one of the people who watch my videos to learn how to better run an original species, be active in your community. It's really crappy to only show up to collect a paycheck. This isn't your Subway job. This was a community you made from your passions. Act like it's actually a passion. If you can't be bothered to participate in your community, then you should just not have one. As with most online communities, the MRA, not to be confused with men's right activism, MRA means Mochi Raptor amino. What an unfortunate acronym. They needed mods and staff to maintain the community and enforce the rules. Pay your mods, by the way. Two of the major staff members are named Lucy and Choco. The community really liked them, and I can vouch for that. They're still talking about Choco. The people I talked to all said the same. Choco seemed to be available at all hours of the day, and Lucy wasn't as active, but definitely more active than Lupi. Lupi decided it was time to monetize the species. It makes sense. She was managing a community and needed to pay mods. The first of these traits were Cobra Hoods and Crystal traits. If you wanted either of these traits, it would cost $10, which isn't bad. The Crystal ones are really cute, and the Cobra Hood is somewhat neat too. Not a lot of snake-like personas out there. People were annoyed by this though. For many, this only further cemented that Lupi was only in it for the money, which now, in my opinion, I would likely agree, but using the knowledge of the time, I'd personally have no issue with it at the time. People talk about selling out like it's a bad thing, but the people who have an issue with selling out likely don't have debts to pay. However, there are better ways to make money off your community without closed variants like selling bases. Even if she isn't drawing them, the community needs money to run. A community of this size doesn't run itself, but it was clear to a lot of people that Lupi only logged on when she wanted money. She didn't host events, moderate, or even post in general with her community. She ignored the complaints people had. People get weird about money, but even the cheapest food still costs money. Speaking of which, I need money to live too, so thank you to patrons like Kiro who help me pay for things, and you can help like Kiro by liking, subscribing, commenting, tipping, or becoming a patron for as low as $1 a month. All links are in the description. Patrons even get early access to videos and art. I'm not monetized yet, still need the watch hours, so even by watching, you're helping, so make sure to watch until the end. Anyway, one of the people who helped Lupi create these traits was a staff member named Mint. Mint was a big contributor with these traits, but was banned shortly after their release. No one knows for sure why Mint was banned, not even the people I talked to, but that might be because the staff moderate the chats and posts. So anytime people would try to discuss why it might be that Mint was banned, the staff would shut it down, which is why I think I didn't find out about the most recent stuff until after the release of the video. They seem to be doing this anytime there's any issues with their fandom, but I get it. You have to keep your community from eating itself alive. Mostly the rumors were that Lupi and Mint argued, but rumors don't do very much good for me. What happened next though? That really upset people. Since Mint was banned, that means that they couldn't be selling Mint's work anymore. So Lupi had to cancel the Crystal and Cobra traits from being paid only. A lot of people were upset. They had already paid for these traits. Lupi did release refunds, but didn't issue refunds to anyone who paid in amino coins, the microtransaction currency of the amino platform. I don't know if it was because Lupi couldn't or chose not to, but this made a lot of people leave the community. And as you'll find out later, she was charging 2 to 3 times as much for amino coin prices over the cash prices. So it was a lot of money to lose out. This wasn't the only controversy in this community though. We aren't even halfway through yet. See why I couldn't include this in the original cut of the video? Lupi disappeared again for a while after that. Choco tried her best to keep everything running, but of course, Lupi came back only after designing new paid traits. These were called king traits. Back then, it was $30 for one to be added. People went berserk. but not because of the reason you think. It's because they actually loved the idea of artificial scarcity, I guess. The community was mostly kids, so I think a lot of it was just the abuse of FOMO, the fear of missing out, and the artificial scarcity and rarity of it all. Like it is now, Lupai would sell slots of these once a month, 3 slots at $30 a slot. These were MYOs, which means no art was sold to them, just a permission slip saying that yes, you can make this. More of these slots were sold for amino coins. These AC slots were 10,000 AC a piece, which means a single king trait cost $65. These coins could not be turned back into real money and were instead used to buy premium accounts and various in-app purchases, like buying art from other people on the platform. So it's not like Lupai had to worry about transaction fees. Okay, here's why that AC is an issue. Because this AC can only be spent in the amino ecosystem, this meant it could only be used on microtransactions like in-app purchases and premium accounts, but it could also be traded to other communities and potentially other artists. You could even use external sources to sell the coins to other people. The only reason I can see why you would charge this much is because of the inconvenience of dealing with amino. But this is highly exploitative, because PayPal is an extremely cheap option by comparison. Who would see these prices and choose to use the more expensive option? People who don't have PayPal accounts. And who doesn't have PayPal? Children, especially children with mommy's credit card. As usual, this was the only time Lupai would be online. A lot of people who voted in my poll earlier this week mostly said the way Lupai handled MYOs isn't exploitative, and I'm curious if you all still feel the same way after hearing more context. Is it exploitative now that you know she wasn't an active member even in her own community, or that she charged absurd prices in amino coins? These amino coin slots still sell, but it's more like 10k for wings plus 2 traits, which is still double of the PayPal price. All for what is essentially a permission slip, no art. I have no issue with artists making a living or them charging a lot. I paid $400 for the model that you see here, and I did the rigging myself. But I paid $400 for the art, so I really obviously have no issue with paying artists what they deserve for their work. It's not the money that bothers me. It's that this way that Lupai does it feels exploitative to me. Lupai's frequent absences came back to bite her though, as Amino passes leadership on to other members in the community if the leader is absent long enough. Lupai was active regularly, but Amino measured this activity in time spent active. Lupai would only come on long enough to sell stuff and disappear again. This meant that the leadership was eventually passed down to Lucy. But Lucy had a stipulation. Lucy would only give membership back to Lupai if she promised to be more active in the community. I think that, overall, that's pretty fair, considering leadership would just get passed off again if she didn't stay active. How hard is it for you to just talk to your community? I do it every day. I practically check for comments every 5 minutes, and it's on your phone. It's not like it's a desktop only thing, so it takes you 5 minutes to just pop on your phone and take a look at things. And with how much waiting a person does in a day, or just spending time on the toilet even, I feel like you could probably make the time for your community. This makes even more sense when you find out that the first time a leader is passed, it's a warning. The second time it happens, the community is deleted. This is because Amino assumes that after the second time that the entire staff must be inactive or dead. So, not a totally unfair ask of Lucy, who just wants to keep this community that she cares about alive. Lupai made a few posts and then asked again. A few posts doesn't mean you're active. You have to do it for a little longer than a day or two. That's really just so crappy. Sorry, I'm still struggling with this. Why the hell does someone have a community if they don't want anything to do with them? This is just so stupid. This community should have been shut down so long ago. Lucy, of course, turned her down. Lupai blasted her on the Amino page, including sharing screenshots of their private messages. These messages weren't even really conclusive of anything, just little arguments that they had between each other. If Lupai found that upsetting, it only makes me more curious about the situation with Mint. So if anyone knows Mint, or if you're Mint and you see this, I would really like to talk to you and find out what exactly was going on that led to your ban. Eventually a rift formed in the community. It was Lucy versus Lupai, and this is kind of funny to me because their names are so similar that I can't help but think of one of them as being the evil twin and one being the good twin. This was the second time a lot of people left. Lupai later on made a new amino. Imagine that. It was less work to make a new community than it was to participate in it. I'm thinking maybe Lucy cared more about the community than Lupai did. Lupai even made it a point to promise that she would be more active in this new community, but even that was a lie too. I've even checked her recent post history, and it's all MYOs, commissions, and adopts. And in this post from July, she even had to be reminded to post her monthly MYOs. If she hasn't written off her community in her mind yet, I am genuinely surprised. Also, yeah, it's August 28th and no August MYOs yet, and I guess Naga emojis are a thing now. I guess I'll make an update video when those get done, although lore was mentioned on her page 11 months ago, and that still hasn't happened either. Lupai, of course, didn't keep her promise and went inactive again. Seems now like it was an empty promise made just to keep people from bailing. This was when she released aquatic traits, which were previously banned. According to the Reddit post, this was the third mass exodus. At least this trait is free, but as I said in the video, this species is a confusing mess of random parts. Any semblance of a theme was long gone after this point. One of the other traits that was previously banned made a return, and this time as a paid trait. Wings, and as we know now, the most expensive trait. So it seems now like things are banned and unbanned at a whim, and nothing was really banned for the concerns of consistency. To me, these unbandings kind of seemed like they were being used to explain away her absences, that she was so super duper busy working on unbanning these that's why she was gone for so long. But in actuality, it just seems like these were unbanned on a whim with no care for theme. By this point, the species is hardly recognizable from its origins that people fell in love with. It's like she is a movie studio, remaking the same movie again and again, trying to relive the good old days, but instead, it's just upsetting the people who like the original. And by this point, she still has no lore for the base Mochi Raptor. Now with the addition of these wing traits, she was making $180 for no work, and I'm guessing about $300 to $400 in amino coins, and this was the fourth mass exodus. People left because they were catching on that this species wasn't a work of passion anymore. Look, I'm just saying, Demon Lady may make feral NSFW, but at least they knew when it was time to step down. We still aren't done, and my hands are aching from typing this script. Even in the recording session following it, I waited like 4 hours to see if the pains would stop, and no. I need to get a new setup for typing. After this new staff was added, one of them was named Checkers, and this was another person related to some drama. Amino has chat rooms, and they were monitored by staff. They had to be, to ensure content wasn't being shared that was against Amino's rules like NSFW content. There was one chat room called 2 Cult, 2 like the Roman numeral. To join, you had to put the Roman numeral for 2 in your username, so 2 capital I's. As the Redditor puts it, their name was Iron, so they had to add an extra I before Iron. The 2 Cult initially seemed harmless, but as you spent more time in there, you'd find that they'd post a lot of offensive content, and were even sharing NSFW content. They of course insisted that it was just dark, edgy humor, but as I'm sure most of you know by now, even if you're making an offensive joke, you're still saying something offensive. A lot of groups like this will tell you it's just a joke, but most of the people who make offensive jokes actually believe them to some extent. They're often being used to test the waters to find out who they can be their real crappy self around. Checkers didn't like this, and of course tried to make them stop. Inadvertently, supposedly, he was banned by a member. I doubt it was an accident, but I digress. In retaliation, Checkers removed the chat room. 2 Cult got upset, called him a dictator, and accused him of police brutality. Yeah, I don't really get that one either. Members of 2 started making alts and used them to send him graphic and violent content, and to them, this was of course just more silly, edgy humor, and definitely not traumatizing or causing genuine direct harm. See what I mean though? They say it's just a joke, but they genuinely meant it. Checkers was backed into a corner and put the chat back up. This was a bad choice, I think. As a mod, he can't let people walk all over him because it sets them up as knowing that they can get whatever they want from him by just abusing him. But I don't blame Checkers. No one should have to put up with this kind of behavior. After that, Checkers stepped down. Some might say he let them win, but I can say for sure, no matter how much you love this fandom, it's not worth what he was put through. He even made a post detailing what was going on. What happened made him feel like hurting himself. He wanted to end his life. But 2 Cult was just joking, right? Sorry, but if you're one of the people who harassed him like this, I hope one day you grow a conscience so you can look back at this moment and feel even an ounce of what you put him through. What the is wrong with you? He also mentioned Lupai was failing as a leader, and how he and other staff weren't ever prepared or instructed on how to do their jobs. Lupai was later asked to make a response to these allegations. People even found her off-platform to message her about this. She'd, of course, delete anything that was related to her amino. Dude, just quit. Seriously, quit. Quit. Checkers almost ended his life for your community, and you don't have anything to say about it. We're at the end of this post, but I have another story to share. People are continuing to leave, and many are saying that if Chaco isn't made the leader, they'll leave. Y'all, there's just so much to this. Every time I think I'm done, someone sends me a message with even more. Even when this video is released, I'm going to continue hearing about more stuff that's going on. Staff eventually addressed the two situation and made a post about how the community and staff are allowed to interact with each other. Basically, the mods can't be blocked or kicked from the chats. That's the end of the old stuff, but I have information and a couple of screenshots from some new stuff. A few people have messaged me about this, but I'm keeping their names anonymous. I'm just going to say that one approached me with the info about some events in December. I then asked others who commented about stuff that happened then, without mentioning what happened, and all three had the same story. So despite not having screenshots of everything, I'm personally inclined to believe a lot of this to be true. Alright, so this is alleged. I have a couple screenshots, but not of everything that happened. There are 3 people saying this happened, though. Okay, so there's a former staff member named Dre who shared with people screenshots of what Lupai did in December. The screenshot is of Lupai sending NSFW commissions to minors. I don't have screenshots of that specific instance, so assume that that's a rumor, but I do have proof of her sending NSFW in a moderator chat where one of the mods is a minor. When this was reported to the staff, they allegedly defended her. According to my source, Lupai pays her staff with MIO money, so they have reason to defend their group remaining active even if Lupai isn't active herself. My source says they were paid to keep quiet. Hush money, you see? Dre left the staff a few weeks later. Things got worse. As usual, Lupai disappeared rather than dealing with her amino, but was still in charge for some reason. Another member named Suki got power hungry and started banning people she didn't like, and most of the time without a reason. Then my source's friend made a plan to expose Lupai for what her and the staff were hiding, but word made it back to another member of the staff named Deadly. See how they hide things that they don't want discussed? My source and their friends could only organize off-platform and still got caught. Deadly snitched to Suki, and Deadly became an official rat for the amino, and soon accounts were getting banned left and right. My source tried to talk to Suki, but Suki gaslit and manipulated them into believing that they were in the wrong for having an issue with Lupai's allegedly illegal behavior. Once Dre found out Deadly was a rat, everyone, of course, lost it. After that, source stayed in contact with friends organizing everything. They had tried to even use the old MRA group, the one Lucy hijacked, I assume, but Lupai still had control of what went on there too, and banned them. What I have is screenshots of the NSFW being sent in the mod chat, but according to the source Dre, said it happened in multiple places. Remember that I said mods can see all chats, but Dre either didn't share those screenshots or his source didn't save them, but it supposedly happened with several minors, not just one mod. The group has since shut down new people joining in order to prevent bots, but in my experience when an account goes private, it's to hide while they wait for the heat to die down. Suki has since stepped down, however it's hard for me to find more information about this stuff, as the group I was using for info now takes forever to load and keeps giving me gateway errors. Even on different computers, different devices, I've even shut off my Wi-Fi, restarted my phone and stuff like that so that the IP address changes. And yeah, I just straight up can't access the page for some reason. I've been refreshing the same page for almost 15 minutes trying to find posts. I think it might be struggling because of all the new people I've directed their way with the Mochi Raptor video, which might have done like a sort of pseudo DDoS or something like that. My bad. I've even sullied my phone by downloading Amino to try and get to it, but it won't let me load anything from the group on my phone because I'm not a member of the group. But in the screenshots here, you can see people are clearly upset with the treatment of Chaco. I also have some screens of Lupai admitting that she doesn't moderate and that she is taking forever on lore and people really want lore. In my opinion, you should get the lore and species art out at the same time. Definitely before you start making monetizable traits that you have no idea if they make sense within context of the world and the lore. But this screenshot is interesting. Lupi complains about Choco ignoring her, and that being the inciting incident for why she was talking shit about Choco. But the response to this is something else. The person chatting with Lupi shares a link where there is a post from Choco's account saying how their grandfather died and they won't be checking messages that day. I guess Lupi didn't see that. It's like she doesn't use her own platform or something. It really seems like, pardon my Earthican here, but it really seems like she doesn't give a f about her group. That is everything I have at this day and time, but I'm sure there will be more in the future. It seems like this community is consistently on the verge of burning itself down, and all I can say is that because of how they go about silencing people in their community, that this video might be the most exposure that these events get. So if I were you, I wouldn't join the Mochi community. If you make a community, let Lupi be an example of how not to run it. If you like your community, like having it, participate in it. If you don't like your community, leave it, instead of stringing people along for so long that the only people in it are people trapped in the sunk cost fallacy of buying your overpriced licenses. My viewpoint may have been harsh throughout this, but there is no way I could bring this stuff up in a way that wouldn't upset someone, and this stuff needed to be shared for anyone who was thinking about joining the community. Just telling you so you know what you're getting yourself into. And with that, thank you everybody for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and dislike it if you hate it. People say I'm underrated, so let's see if I can go to overrated. And of course, sub for more original species content like spotlights and tips, and I will see you all later. Bye!